So what you can see is that we've got most of the rafters done on this forward section of the roof. They're all cut at an 8/12 pitch. I've already cut the tails of them, and I have this level with where my beam is, and that's so that my soffit work kind of wraps into the rest of the porch. I've cut a fascia board with a bevel on this top end that's at about 33, 34 degrees, and that'll tie into the plane of my roof. I've got a 2x4 scabbed onto this side of the existing soffit so that I can rest one end of it. And I'm going to put this bar clamp, forward on the beam to catch the front side of it. And that should allow me to hold it in place so that I can get my nail gun in here and tack it in. I'm leaving it long for now, just so that I can get the length cut to what I need it to be when I've got my overhang on that side. But I'll go ahead and tack these in. So what I'm going to do, some of these rafters are a little torqued a little bit. So what I'm going to do is kind of tack each one individually. I'll use another bar clamp, like a long lever or something, to straighten it up as I'm going across. But for now, this will at least temporarily hold it until I get set up to do that. So now we're on the other side of the roof, and I just wanted to give you a quick idea of how I'm putting that fascia piece in and tying it into the existing roof line. All of my rafter tails, they've been cut at the point where a 2x6 fascia piece will sit on there. As I mentioned, I've got a bevel cut at about 33.7 degrees to match my 8x12 pitch going up. And I've got the bottom of the rafter cut so that it's flush with the bottom of my beam. So that's so my soffit piece can come straight in here. And this beam comes in, and this is flush with the existing kind of sub fascia, the original framing that the fascia was on. So what I do is I take a level, I run it across the face of these ends, these rafter tails, and see where it hits the old fascia. I'm giving myself 1.75 inches so that I have enough room for a 2x4 or the 2x6 to come in, along with a little bit of wiggle room. And then what I'm doing is that fascia, as I said, it's got a bevel cut on the top. It's 33.7 degrees so that it ties in with the 8/12 pitch. I'll tack that on, starting here first because I can get it flush with the bottom of the old kind of 2x6 structure back there. I'll let it hang on the far side. Okay, so last you had seen, we had done the purlins put up along the front portion of the porch. I got busy yesterday and we just went through and did all the rafters. And I thought just before I enclose everything with the 5/8 OSB sheathing on top, I'd kind of show what we'd done. To get the end of the peak where it hits the roof, I knew that I have a horizontal plane on the top of my ridge beam. And so what I did is I drew a string on the top of that and brought that all the way back. And then I took 2 measurements from where my fascia meets the original house and made sure I had 2 measurements that are 182 coming up off of that, and where they met, intersected with the string, I could tell that that's where the peak needed to land on the rest of the house. So I'm standing on a 412 pitch here. We have an 812 on the porch. All my cuts then are set up so that where my rafters hit the ridge beam, it's an 812. And where the rafter comes down and lands on this board on my decking, I've got a 412 bevel cut on that as well. So what I did, knowing that my ridge beam was straight based on that string line, I measured the length from the furthest point on the rafter top to the tail down here, and then I'd cut my angles accordingly and kind of just scabbed them in. Now we're just putting the 5/8 OSB on top, and I'm using some of these hurricane or these little I guess I don't know what they're called. They're these little 5/8 clips. I'm not sure if they're called hurricane clips, but you put those in between each one of your joists and we'll just lay the decking up. At the top, I'm leaving a couple inch gap before the ridge beam, and that's just to leave some kind of ventilation. This isn't going to be an enclosed space on the main porch. It's going to be a vaulted ceiling. Up here, though, where it's over the original house, I'm going to cut a hole in the original roof sheathing so that I can let some airflow in this kind of void, because I'm going to end up framing a wall that goes flush with the front of the house when it's all said and done. So leaving a little bit of a gap at the top, I'll put some ridge vent across the top, and that just lets some of that hot air out in the summer.